Has a woman ever called you a narcissist? And you think, how can I be a narcissist? I'm just doing whatever I can to please you. Am I crazy? Why don't you see me? Maybe I am a narcissist. Okay, welcome to the Nice Guy Show. I'm your host, Ari Graff, and I'm joined by my co hosts, Faisal Khokhar and Chuck Chapman. The three of us are coaches dedicated to helping nice guys because we are recovering nice guys ourselves. Together, we have decades of experience helping men level up. Our mission is to help men develop the confidence and the skills to get the love, sex, and success they desire. Okay, so I got a little story I want to tell you. Back in January, my son and I were testing for our next Taekwondo belt, and I had just started Taekwondo 2 months earlier after quitting 30 years ago. So I was really excited to do it with my son. Long story short, my ex, who had picked him up from school that day, she texted me and said, well, he doesn't want to go to my testing. He doesn't want to watch me at my testing because he was tired and had a long day. And I was incensed by this. I was furious. I told her she wasn't teaching him the right thing about how to support a family member and that we were making memories together. I insisted that he come with me. She said she was surprised how selfish and narcissistic I was being. Those were her words. She later said to me, do you know how much he is engaged in Taekwondo just to make you happy? So, am I a narcissist? Faisal, have you ever been called a narcissist by a woman or anyone else in your life?
Yep. So my ex-wife said, you are a narcissist. I was like, what is a narcissist? Like what is this word? Yeah. Is it a compliment? What? And so after breakup, I got myself a coach. And I was really embarrassed and shamed. And I said, she's accused me of being a narcissist. And I Googled everything about it. I'm like, yeah, some of the traits are true. So am I a narcissist? And obviously he did a test on me. And he said, you're not a clinical narcissist. But he goes, you have, like everybody else, narcissistic tendencies. I went, oh, whew. So I'm not the only one. He says, no, you're not the only one. He says, as children, children are narcissists, and up to the age of 5, they're super, everything revolves around them, and we all want our needs met. So I was very afraid, and I work with a lot of guys, and I see this as well. Just like them, I had this fear that of all these labels, and I had women throw a lot of labels at me, labels I couldn't even pronounce. And I had to Google a lot of them. And I'm going, what is this? What is this? What is this? And I'm like, where are they coming with these labels? How do they know about this? So obviously they've been reading a lot of, girly magazines with psychology in it. And then he's this, he's that, he's that. So what I discovered was, yes, we're all on this spectrum. And then when I started learning about human behavior psychology, I was like, you're quick to throw these labels around, but have you taken a look at yourself? And then it was true that what I found, what narcissists hate, is it takes one to know one, right? So you got to have those traits reflected. It's in you too. And that was a bitter pill for her to swallow. A lot of the women who accused me of stuff was like, actually, it takes one to know one.
Really, really good points there. And this is one of my beefs. This is one of my issues is people are throwing around narcissist so loosely these days that it starts to lose its meaning, and it's less helpful. So it's more helpful to unpack what it means. So Chuck, what about you? Have you ever been called a narcissist? And do you think I'm a narcissist?
I think that we're all a bit narcissistic, like Faisal was saying, similar kind of experience. Like mental illness is just normal behavior that's gotten to a point where it causes dysfunction in our lives and the lives of others. So for example, We've all been a little blue, so we've all experienced a little bit of depression. We've all felt a little anxious. We've all maybe wondered if someone was talking about us. We've all had, ideas that, or maybe there's a conspiracy going on, something along those lines. It's just that when those things then become so overwhelming that that's all you're doing, you're always depressed, you're always anxious, you're always paranoid. Or in the case of the narcissist is you are self-consumed. You have no ability to see outside of yourself but yourself. And I think that's kind of what separates the true narcissist from the person who's just, when we're all a little egocentric, is that a narcissist literally cannot, sees everyone else as an extension to meet their needs rather than they also are there in partnership to meet other people's needs. So I think that there's a big, that the gap is really about whether or not you're able to have empathy. Now, what I do know is that most nice guys fall into what we might consider to be the covert narcissist. And a covert narcissist is kind of the flip side of what we would think of as a regular narcissist. Rather than being loud and flamboyant, the covert narcissist is more introverted, and yet they feel really self-important. The covert narcissist is really sensitive to criticism. The covert narcissist has a victim mentality. This is happening to me. They have a lot of resentment. They have a lot of envy. They become the martyr. Oh, I can't believe this is, everything is happening to me and it's not my fault. They're passive aggressive. And there's a lack of empathy that happens in that way. But I think the problem is that when we hear a word like narcissist, we see that as a irreversible diagnosis. And I think that with the nice guy syndrome, we have a lot of those tendencies as the covert narcissist, but we also have a pathway out of that, which is becoming fully integrated. So to your point, yes, you're a narcissist. So am I. So is Faisal. And we're also integrated men who are trying to do our best to just live our best lives.
Yeah, I don't think we're narcissists. I would say that we all have narcissistic needs and traits. Yeah. But I do think, I agree with you. There's different kinds of narcissists. So covert narcissist, that's a term that's becoming more widely known. And I think you're right. There's some overlap with nice guys. I'm gonna break down what it actually means to have a narcissistic personality disorder, because that's really what we're talking about when people are throwing around he's a narcissist, she's a narcissist. We're talking about someone who's a pathological narcissist, someone who has a personality disorder. That means someone at really the extremes of narcissism. But to actually meet the criteria for that diagnosis, according to the DSM, the psychiatric manual, you really have to have 5 of these 9 traits. A grandiose sense of self-importance, a preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love, a belief that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high-status people or institutions, a need for excessive admiration, a sense of entitlement, interpersonally exploitative behavior, a lack of empathy, envy of others, or a belief that others are envious of him or her, a demonstration of arrogant and haughty behaviors or attitudes. So not only do you need 5 of those 9 traits according to the diagnostic criteria, but it's got to be something that's enduring and pervasive. These are long-term traits, and these are throughout your life. It's not just something that occasionally pops up. And it's got to be something that really impairs the person. So that's a high bar. to meet to actually qualify for narcissistic personality disorder. And in some ways, I think it's too high of a bar, because there are people who might just have a couple of those traits, but it really impairs their life. So, nice guy syndrome, while it isn't a psychiatric diagnosis, has different characteristics than that narcissistic personality disorder. So that includes things like approval seeking, conflict avoidance, repressing needs and feelings, poor boundaries, feeling unappreciated, covert contracts, dishonesty, passive aggressive behaviors, compulsive behaviors, fixing and caretaking. So those are some of the hallmarks of nice guy syndrome. Um, so they're different. I mean, I think here's some of the core differences between the two, even though you can have some of both. So someone who's narcissistic, they're really driven by a sense of entitlement and a need for admiration and control. That's not what nice guys are really wanting. They're wanting external validation, and they're afraid of rejection. So sometimes wanting external validation can kind of bleed into admiration, and it can even seem controlling. So that's how it can look blurrier in everyday life. And I think nice guys can even seem entitled to their partners. So I think, one of the issues here is both narcissists and nice guys are needy in a way.
Yeah, I was
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that what I found with narcissistic people, especially people pleasers, so nice guy syndrome, people pleasers, is that they're so self-absorbed, even though they think they're looking after somebody else, they're trying to please everybody else, trying to get their approval. It all comes back down to how they feel. It's their emotions. They're so connected with what they want as well. Even empaths, it's always down to, I found the dark side of empaths as well. They say, oh, well, I'm just thinking about everybody else. I'm trying to please everybody else. And I'm like, well, it always comes back to how you feel. It's your feeling, not actually what disconnected from that is what do they need? So I find that people who are really people pleasers are, highly self-absorbed in their own emotions, their own needs. And that's what they're working on.
Right. And so, if you're a nice guy and you're hooking up an emotional hose to your wife, you might be hooking up an emotional hose through a manipulative or indirect ways, but she's feeling how needy you are, and it feels selfish to her. And I think that can be construed and labeled as needing admiration, or it could just be kind of sloppily called narcissism. Even though I don't think it's totally the same thing. I don't. What do you think, Chuck?
Well, I was just going to say that I think that, just like in No More Mr. Nice Guy, Dr. Glover talks about the I'm so nice guy and the I'm so bad nice guy. And I think that you can carry a lot of shame, and that's actually like reverse narcissism. Okay, the narcissist is I'm better than everybody else, and the reverse narcissist would be then I'm worse than everybody else. And it's still about being self-absorbed. And I think that that's kind of the point here, is that our nice guy's narcissist is our nice guy's self-absorbed. And I would say, yes, nice guys are very self-absorbed. And does that make them a narcissist from the clinical standpoint of, the DSM? No, because it's a very, it's kind of like schizophrenia or something along those lines. It's a very specific diagnosis. But I think the thing that we need to be aware of is we need to have the humility to say, oh, you know what? I do make things about myself quite often. Oh, this is about me actually. Oh, this is actually me wanting validation from somebody else and not having enough empathy for someone else. I also think that like a true narcissist doesn't wonder if he's a narcissist or not, because he's too narcissistic to even think about the question. So I think if you wonder, am I narcissistic? It's kind of an indication that you're not, because a true narcissist is never going to wonder that about themselves. But I think that we can be, as nice guys, can be very, very self-absorbed, and then that's what turns people off. And so we fake being concerned about somebody else when we're really just concerned about our own sensitivities and our own self. So the path forward is always about becoming an integrated man. And an integrated man knows himself, knows what he wants, knows how to set boundaries, is comfortable with his masculinity, his sexuality, all of those kind of things. And that rather than needing someone to tell me that I'm okay, that I'm self-validating enough to know that A, I'm okay, and I'm not better than anyone else.
That's right. If you view yourself as being on a healing journey, you're probably not a narcissist.
And narcissists can't take feedback, right? That's, and they wouldn't be in most narcissists. Well, they wouldn't be in a coaching environment or being coached or therapy, right? Because they'll be like, well, or they will reject everything. That's what. And one of the things I do when I'm working with the guys as well, and it's quite interesting because I'm guilty of this as well. In the early stages of my growth was I was so focused on myself. And what I'm doing is when I'm replaying, for example, like a dating scenario, and I would say, look, what do you think she's feeling? What do you think she's thinking? And that part of them, they haven't really expanded that. They haven't really got into that world. And they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, okay, let's imagine. And it's not that those guys can't do it. It's the thing is that muscle has never been exercised. Like those muscles have never been exercised. And it's just like teaching them. And they do learn it. And the guys pick it up after a little while, a bit of training. The guys are able to say, well, she's thinking probably this or she's doing that. I'm like, okay, now you're getting it. And now that's how you can start, building bridges, building a better connection, creating attraction, because you're not so self-absorbed in your own ideas, making a mistake, doing things wrong. You don't want to get told off or make mistakes and be rejected. I said, you're so consumed in that, it'll stop you. There'll be no bandwidth for you to connect with her as well.
Yeah, if you're a true narcissist, then you can't really learn empathy. You might be able to sort of learn it on a cognitive level, but not on a deep emotional level. So I think for probably a lot of the guys that we work with, their empathy muscle might be a little weak, but it's something that can be developed more. But a true narcissist can't really use empathy or learn it in a way that we're used to, which is a sad thing.
And a true narcissist won't share or like or comment this podcast. Can I say that?
Yeah. A true narcissist won't subscribe to this podcast. If you're a narcissist, you won't subscribe. But if you're not a narcissist, you will subscribe to this podcast. That's what you're saying.
One other piece that we haven't really gotten into is just the cultural aspect of this. And I think there are cultural factors that are really contributing to narcissism in people, especially things like social media, the focus on likes, which I suppose we're even guilty of. But I think it's the excessiveness of people's focus on social media that need to be admired. That is just rampant nowadays. So, I mean, there are things in the culture that promote narcissism, and so that's something to be conscious of, and I think to try to limit yourself. a few other points that I wanted to make before we wrap up. So, in my experience, most nice guys are not narcissists too. They may have some narcissistic traits, but they're not narcissists. So if you're on the path of nice guy recovery, you're probably not a narcissist. If you have empathy, at least some level of empathy, you're probably not a narcissist. If you're looking for validation but don't need excessive admiration, you're probably not a narcissist. And if you're listening to this show, you're probably not a narcissist. So thanks again for being part of the Nice Guy Show. If you want other topics like these that get into the diagnoses that are talked about a lot in our culture, let us know. Or if you're interested in other topics, let us know. If you're watching this on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe. This helps us reach out to more men. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, make sure to subscribe there as well. And go to niceguyshow.com to get on the mailing list. If you like this podcast, check out episode number 29, Evolving Beyond the Nice Guy, the High Value Man. Thanks for joining us today.
You've been listening to The Nice Guy Show with certified Nice Guy recovery coaches Ari Graff, Chuck Chapman, and Faisal Khokhar. Be sure to subscribe to this channel so you can listen to our latest episodes and visit us on www.theniceguyShow.com. If you have any topics you'd like to hear us discuss, send us an email at support@theniceguyShow.com. Thanks for listening.